Hey, do you want to come over and make a pot of tea, bring your favorite crystals? We could talk about our birth charts, spirits, the latest house spells we've been doing. Welcome to the neighborhood. I'm that witch next door. Well, hey there, neighbor. Happy Friday to you. I am very, very happy and grateful to be connecting with you through your speakers again. You very likely already noticed I took this past moon day off from releasing an episode. If you don't already follow me on Instagram, or if you're not in Mighty Networks for That Witch School, or if you just hadn't heard my news that I shared, I believe last week, my family and I had to pretty unexpectedly and quickly lay our dog to rest. And if you know me well, or if you've been around for a while, then you know how much Tootsie means to my family and how much she means to me. She's my familiar, and her loss and this grief has been far, far greater than I could have possibly imagined. And I already imagined it would be pretty bad one day. So I did take this past Memorial Day weekend to be with my family and just slowly transition back into, regular life, one foot in front of the other kind of thing. So I just wanted to say a humongous thank you to everybody, because the humongous outpouring of love and support and thoughts and prayers and condolences that you shared with my family and I over this last week and a half has been so felt and so appreciated. So I just wanted to make sure at the top of the episode, since I hadn't talked to you since then, to share that with you, to share my love, my gratitude, and just say how amazing it is to genuinely feel so lifted up and supported by this entire beautiful community. So thank you. I am very excited to give you today's episode. I recorded it a little while ago, which not too long ago, but a good chunk of weeks ago. So I wanted to make sure I jumped on and gave you a little up-to-date intro for this. But this episode, all about protection magic, is wildly important, my friend. And honestly, even if you consider yourself an advanced practitioner, brushing up on, reminding yourself, getting back into such important basics like especially foundational work like protection magic, it's just so helpful, so beneficial to all of us. It was just as valuable for me to record it, to collect it all and record it for you. So I am very excited to present this episode to you. I would love to know if you'd reach out to me while you're listening to this episode or after you listen to it. Head to thatwitchnextdoor.com/conjurethatwitch. Send me a DM on Instagram, or if you're in Mighty Networks, That Witch School, send me a DM there. But I would love to know, what are the areas, or what were the areas that you used to or still feel scared or nervous about exploring or learning more about? I would love to know those places in the occult, witchcraft, magic, mysticism, that kind of bring up some feelings of fear or uneasiness for you. So again, Share your experiences, your thoughts, your feelings with me by going to thatwitchnextdoor.com/conjurethatwitch, or you can shoot me a DM on Instagram. Or again, if you are in Mighty Networks for That Witch School, you can also send me a DM there. Without further ado, let's get into this super, super important episode on protection magic. Hello, neighbor. Welcome to That Witch Podcast. I'm Danny, and I am That Witch Next Door. And I am very glad you're here because we have a super important subject today. We are not going to waste time mincing words today. I'm not saying something for me, but we are going straight into protection work today. Holy moly, holy moly. There are too many of you not doing this. You're not doing enough protection work. You're not doing it at all, usually. Quite often, I find this out. It's one of those things in magic and energy work that people attribute too much to other spells or rituals that you just do sometimes. No. Grounding, cleansing, and protection work are energetic basics. These are fundamentals when it comes to energetic hygiene specifically. And the more that you're doing it, the more regularly, the more effective this work is. Now, a very common misconception is that witchcraft and keeping up with your cleansing and your protection rituals, I don't have time for this. This is why I don't have time for this, Danny. I promise you have time for this. I promise. And I double promise because of the benefits that it gives you. But it's also so easy. So easy. Are there these big, ginormous rituals that you can do that are like under the full moon and you get into all of your magical garb and you've done it on a Tuesday under the petition of Warrior Mars with 25 red candles all around? You see what I'm saying? I'm trying to go as elaborate as possible. Sure. Do that protection ritual too, if you want to, if you feel called to, if it feels like something that would really benefit you. Do it. Do the big protection ritual. But that is not the only way we protect as witches. And actually, the more practical, the more simple, the more effective in this case, because the consistency and the regularity is key. So if doing the big ritual means that that's taking up too much time and you're obviously not going to do that every single day, then it's not very effective, is it? So let's start with, where do you start, right? How do you even get started in protecting yourself? Well, I wanted to set a good example today. And if you're watching the video, here's my fit check. I'm wearing all black today. I'm actually wearing all black with a little bit of white and some gold accents. All of this was intentional. Ooh, and I even put on a black headband today. Intentional accessory as well. So the first thing that everyone wants to get to is that. What are the colors? What are the tools? What are the accessories? But the reason we can't start there is because absolutely none of the tools matter if your mindset isn't there. If your protection mindset isn't there, none of the tools you use are going to be very effective. Okay, there has to be some sort of protection mindset. What does that mean? Well, first of all, one of the biggest things is the trust in your intuition in the first place, okay? That's a huge one. You have to practice, not just learn. People say you have to learn to do this, but the way you learn this is by practicing. You have to practice discerning between anxiety and fear and your actual intuitive nudges. This is one of the most common struggles of any intuitive, especially anyone just starting out. Anyone will tell you, you just have to learn over time. What they mean is you have to practice. This is why I recommend documenting your witchcraft experiences, your spiritual experiences, your big aha moments, your deep, profound reflections. The reason why documenting these things helps is that over time, you are reflecting back on what was fear and anxiety, what turned out to be intuition, what were the differences between those experiences. What now in hindsight are you able to see why that was intuition and why that was fear and anxiety? And the more you do this, the more you learn the unique language of your intuition, what it sounds like, what it feels like in your body. And it's really, really hard if the concept of trust in yourself is super foreign. And it's also very normal if you fall into that category, and you are in welcome company, my friend, because that is something that I personally have struggled with since the beginning of before I was a witch, and also something that I still work on in my shadow work. Any witch or intuitive that tells you they never, ever, ever experience self-doubt or questioning or like, is that my intuition? Is that not? Is either lying to you or they're a robot. Because if you're a human being, you experience self-doubt in some kind of capacity, in some sort of version, in some sort of way. There are experiences we go through that put us into that state of mind. So it's not like you're doomed if you're someone who struggles with self-trust. Don't worry about that. I will say, however, you do have to practice building that trust with yourself. You can't just ignore that problem and hope that it goes away. You have to actively work on practicing trusting yourself, okay? And that means going with the intuitive nudges. That means taking the risk that you might be quote unquote wrong. Here's another reason why documenting your experiences is so, so important. I can't tell you how many times this has happened to me where I thought I was wrong. I thought I was totally off base about something. And it turned out, the more time went on, not only was I quote unquote right, I was supposed to get it wrong. Me feeling like I had gotten it wrong opened me up to a different type of reflection. I was able to have a different kind of realization. I built a different and unique kind of self-trust within myself because of that whole long experience, okay, in hindsight. So again, documentation, making these notes and markers throughout your experience, they serve more than just the purpose of I don't know exactly what. I think that the most common misconception is we think we have to write in our book of shadows, our grimoires, our spell books, our notebooks, our journals, so that we can go back and read them like recipe books. And maybe sometimes we do this. I have made up tarot spreads before and written them in my notebook and gone back to find them, to utilize them, or give them to the school or to that witch school or whatever. But other than that, the only time I read back my journal pages or my notebooks is for my own self-reflection purposes and to see where I was, especially during a certain time or certain season of my life compared to now. But even if you took away that process and you're like, Danny, I am never going to go back and read any of the things that I've ever written down. Again, the documenting it in the first place is not solely for the purpose of going back and reading it or going back and listening to it. When you take the time to set aside and mark down your feelings and your experiences, you are creating this marker in time for yourself, this marker, this little notch in your growth that you will remember, even if it's just subconsciously, and you will grow from that. So one thing I always think of is, did you know that in a plant, to get it to root, so like if you take a cutting from a plant, to get that to root and grow roots, you cut it at an angle and then you make little slits, little notches in it. And then you can put some kind of root hormone. There's a lot of natural things, and some of them go in water and they'll root in water, or they'll root directly in soil. And where you made those little cuts or notches, those markers, roots grow out of. And that's what this made me think of. So it's important. Document. I don't care if you record. I don't care if you write it down. I don't care if you videotape. It doesn't matter. You could do a collection of multiple things, digital and written. It doesn't matter. But document. Especially in protection work, you will be able to reflect back on times and be able to much better distinguish. I was in a world of fear at that time, and it resulted in a lot of paranoia, in a lot of jumping to conclusions, in a lot of defensiveness, in a lot of shutting the world out. And that in and of itself is such wildly helpful information to your conscious and your subconscious, and getting them on the same page and getting them to speak the same language and understand each other, so that moving forward, we are better discerning what is fear, what is anxiety, what are actual intuitive nudges, okay? So if we don't trust in our intuition, we won't trust in our protection magic, and it will render it almost useless, okay? Now, the reason I say almost is because in protection work, there is this simultaneous, and I find this with pretty much any branch of magic, but there's something special in particular about protection work, where you are co-creating and teaming up with the universe, with your spirit guides, angels, God, whatever makes sense for you. And simultaneously in that moment, you and your spirit team are co-creating a protective orb around you, a loved one, an object, an area of your life, a physical space in your life. There's lots of things that we protect. There's this layer of both you and spirit in this protection. So I will say, even when you're struggling with doubt and self-trust, there is still that layer that the universe and your spirit team does bring to the table. Our protection work is like fucking impenetrable when we are on the same page as spirit. When we are trusting in spirit, we know spirit's trusting in us because we are part of source energy. We trust in our power and our magic. This is what creates the most effective protection work. And that's why mindset matters the most, because you could use any fucking tool, you could use 0 fucking tools. But if you are that confident and trusting in your protection work, it's good fucking protection work. I promise you that. I promise. So start with your mindset. This means you got to do your shadow work. I will link that in the show notes below. You need to be doing your shadow work in order to be doing your mindset work, period. We're not going to go in depth into what shadow work is in this episode. Now, let's talk about protection symbols and correspondences. I got our handy dandy complete book of Correspondences by Sandra Kynes, published by Llewellyn's. So this is not a true, complete resource, but it is a very, very freaking stacked resource, okay? This is a cross-reference guide of magical correspondences, so different symbols, objects, colors, etc., plants, animals, deities, all what they're associated with and attributed to through a magical lens, okay? So if I want to know which day of the week is associated with protection, if I want to know the colors, the astrology symbols, the moon phase, the animals, the plants, the crystals associated with protection, I can just go to the protection section and read all of these different tools, talismans, symbols, etc., what have you, that are associated with protection. And likewise, this is what makes it a cross-reference. Likewise, I could go, like, let's say there's an animal that I keep seeing over and over and over again in pictures on social media, in real life, like the raven keeps crossing my path over and over again. I could pull this out and go to the raven section and see some of the different intentions and powers and traits associated with the raven, any colors, any deities, any plants associated as well, the days of the week, again, all of those different things. So this is one of the most frequently recommended resources I have around here. It's not sponsored at all. I just absolutely love this book, and I recommend it all the time. It's humongous. It's well worth the price. I find if your local library has it, so you can just check out a sample of it, it's super, super worth it, but I can almost guarantee you're going to love it. I've had this book for years. Okay. So if you're watching the video right now, let me just show you this visual. This is how many symbols and different correspondences there are associated with protection. Okay, so it starts right here, pretty high up on the page here, okay? Prosperity is just finishing out right above it. Protection starts goes for the full second page, and doesn't finish till halfway on its third page. For reference, that's huge in this book, okay? That's huge to take up almost 3 full pages of different correspondences and symbols associated with protection. So this is what I mean when I say protection is so co-creative with the universe. It's why there's so many different correspondences associated with it. It's why in so many ways you can't do it wrong as long as your mindset is there, okay? That's why we start with mindset. Okay, let's talk about some of these. I'm not going to read all of these because that would be reading 3 full pages, but there are so many different symbols here. Let's start with a favorite around That Witch podcast. When it comes to the solar system, the zodiac, the cosmos, what's associated with protection here? According to Llewellyn's, they list Cancer and Taurus as zodiac signs associated with protection. I would very much agree with that. Cancer in the shell, also the nurturer, the caregiver, the homemaker, protector of home and loved ones, okay? And Taurus, protector of what we have and what belongs to us, security, shelter. That makes a lot of sense. I would 100% add lots of other signs here. And actually, I would say each sign has its own way of expressing and working with and calling on protection. Maybe that's an episode we'll do if anyone's curious, specifically protection through astrology, like using your birth chart. That would be really, really fun. But Llewellyn's also lists the Earth, Moon, Neptune, and Sun as solar system or celestial bodies to work with or call on for protection. Moon phases, full, waning, and waxing. And I have personally seen the new moon associated many, many times with protection as well. So it makes sense that the moon in general, and honestly, any phase, one little tip I will give is for that big oomph, A full moon energy might be nice, but the waning period of the moon is very associated with releasing and even banishing. So that could be also really nice to amplify some protection energy for you. Let's see here. So let's talk about some colors. I mentioned that I'm wearing black and gold. So black is probably one of the most commonly associated colors with protection. So is white. You'll hear a lot of times in guided meditation, hypnosis, past life regression to envision yourself in an orb or a pyramid of white light that protects you. So white and black are both very strongly associated with protection. This also lists blue, brown, gold, green, purple, red, silver, violet, and yellow. So we have quite the spectrum here. Again, because protection is so co-creative and with the entire universe, and where you would begin being drawn to a color would probably depend on the type of protection that you are calling for. So black is a really good rule of thumb, general protection, or especially super, super strong protection. Some people say white specifically for psychic protection because of that white light. I personally think that black could work just as well in that. It totally depends on what you're visualizing and what feels the most protective to you. But you might throw some of these other shades of colors in there, or hues, I should say, because they might bring in a flare or an added type of energy that you want to bring in with this and with this protection work. So maybe you want red for the warrior, blood protection, earth protection, root chakra protection, right? Red would also activate fiery protection and a lot of that warrior energy, like I said. Purple might add in that intuitive, psychic, crown chakra, that type of spiritual protection. Blue and any hues and shades of blue might bring in that healing energy, protecting, bringing in healing energy and protecting and allowing that healing process to take place. And different pinks can be associated with love. So can yellows, but yellows can also be great for protection of the mind because yellow is very associated with the element of air. So you can see how you can use the meanings and energies of colors in with and layer it in with your protection work to bring in or add another layer of energy in with that protection intention, okay? Let's see here. There are so many plants and flowers and herbs and trees associated with protection. I am going to read a very loose handful here. There are so many. Ash trees, birch trees, cedar and cypress, elder, hawthorn, magnolia, oak, olive, palm, pomegranate, rowan, spruce, sycamore, willows, witch hazel. Various herbs are basil, blackberry, bramble, carnation, chrysanthemum, clover, comfrey, dandelion, fern and fettle, honeysuckle, ivy, jasmine, lavender and lilac, marjoram, peony, raspberry, rue, snapdragon, spearmint, thyme, valerian's a big one, and then some miscellaneous other plants, cinnamon, clove. Did we already mention clove? Clover. Cinnamon, clove, coriander, cumin, flax, ginseng, horehound, lady slipper, mandrake, mustard, pepper, any type of pepper, by the way, any. Thistle, thornapple, water lily, wormwood, and then it goes into the crystals. Now, crystals, think colors, and again, you don't have to just go with crystals that are associated with protection. You can bring in crystals of different colors to bring in, or different energies to bring in that energy to represent protecting that type of energy or that energy center. So black crystals are very commonly recommended for protection, like obsidian, onyx, tourmaline. I have a piece of all of those. And fluorite, especially rainbow fluorite, very, very protecting of the mind and psychic skills and psychic communication. Howlite is a wonderful protector of dreams and peaceful sleep. Citrine is a very popular protector of business and career and success. Amethyst is another super protector of overall aura, especially energetic type of protection. Another mineral, but not a gemstone, is salt. And salt is like one of the most protecting substances on our earth because it is so effectively neutralizing in its energy. So salt is very similar to smoky quartz, and smoky quartz is associated with absorbing negative energy. It can be very good for absorbing that from you as well. Any paranoia, excessive anxiety, excessive fear that you're feeling. Carrying smoky quartz around to help absorb that excess can be really helpful. But also can keeping salt around you or salt in the room, eating a little, sprinkling a little salt on your food before you eat it, even in your drink. Salt is excellent for neutralizing energy. And so it's very effective with neutralizing curses and hexes, all the way to, again, our own inner negative energy that we're kind of just stewing in and boiling over with without realizing. Salt can help neutralize and simmer that down a little bit, okay? Now, there are, when it comes to gods and goddesses and deities, there are those associated with specifically protection. Very often it's protection of a certain group of people, protector of children, protector of women, protector of men, protector of people of a certain belief system, people of a certain worship of a specific deity. It could be people that work with certain animals. It could be a protector of animals or a certain type of animal. Here's what I'll say. Deity work is its own whole thing, and we'll be doing more episodes on that as well, coming very, very soon. And let me just say, you develop a unique relationship with the deity, and very often there is some sort of asking for protection in exchange for the worship that you do. So I don't like to get too, just like with the crystals, I don't want to teach you to get too hung up on which deity do I work with for protection. Deity work should really be practiced because you are called to working with and worshiping other gods and goddesses, because you're drawn to them, because you're very interested in the work, because it feels like it's resonating, it feels exciting and magical. If you feel pressured or like you should only work with the deity because that's what you're quote unquote supposed to as a witch or a pagan, but you're not necessarily into it, you don't need to at all. Simply calling on the elements for protection, the universe for protection, working with things like just the color or just the energy of protection in general, all of that is plenty, okay? So I wanted to go into a few of those symbols to get you started, plus drop this really, really helpful resource for you in the show notes, the Book of Correspondences. But there's lots more digging you can do for even more symbols and correspondences associated with protection work. So one of my last tips that we're wrapping up with is, of course, the energetic hygiene. Again, I'm never going to stop repeating that on this show and in my content. I'm sorry, not sorry. It's so important, and most of us are not doing it. We're not grounding, we're not cleansing, we're not protecting, we're certainly not doing it regularly. Ground, cleanse, and protect should, when I say that, I'm referring to a very brief ritual. This can take place in under 60 seconds, in under 30 seconds, honestly. Taking a big, deep breath, unfolding or uncrossing my legs if I'm sitting or standing and feeling like I'm really evenly planted, taking intentional deep breaths in and exhaling intentionally out. That in and of itself, I am grounding and I am cleansing in that moment. Any kind of prayer, affirmation, or just inner somatic like will of protection is the ending protection piece. Sometimes I straight up ask for protection in that moment. Sometimes I just envision the color black all around me. Sometimes I envision a very specific orb that's around me or around my home or the space that I am or around the message or the email I'm sending at that moment. There's so many different ways that I utilize protection, but it's very brief when I will it, when I petition for it, when I direct that energy. This is very, very brief to the point of I can do ground, cleanse, protect as quickly and effectively as a Catholic might do the sign of the cross, the Father, of the Son, the Holy Spirit, amen, right? The symbol that if you grew up in the Catholic Church, you know, like that's how quick I can do ground, cleanse, protect. And I love using that example because that's how effective that is. That's all that it needs to be. And because of that, I can do that as many times throughout the day, every single day that I need to. And you bet your butt, neighbor, I do it all the time. That is one of the biggest things that will set apart a really advanced or experienced practitioner from much newer is learning that you have to find your own unique way of doing your energetic basics, your energetic hygiene, and doing it regularly. Regularity is the key, and it is going to take time to build the habit to remember to do this. So don't beat yourself up if you're struggling to remember to do it. That's part of the journey in and of itself. That's what I'm saying. That's what I mean by this sets apart an experienced from a newer practitioner. That experience of having to build that habit from scratch and forgetting to do it a million times, and that's what eventually led to you remembering to do it at the drop of a pin whenever you need it. Yeah, that's the point. That's the journey. Episodes like these are to help remind you that you don't have to overthink it, you don't have to overcomplicate it, that it really comes down to your mindset first and foremost more than anything. Any tools, symbols, or correspondences that you use should be meaningful and sacred to you. It should feel like it has a purpose. If it feels like you're just using it because you're supposed to, it's pointless. It's not necessarily like full-blown harmful or going to backfire, but it is pointless. You don't need it. You don't need the excess, okay? I promise. And over time, you will see how much this makes a difference in your life, in living a lifestyle as a modern witch, is when you master your energetic hygiene. It strengthens your intuition. It builds trust within yourself. It grows your magic. It helps you feel more confident in any type of spiritual work that you do because it's only growing that comfortableness and that comfort, I should say, and that confidence in your magic and in your work. So you can go into any new situation feeling so much more prepared, feeling genuinely protected, and therefore trustworthy. So a lot of protection work is to help you be more confident, being vulnerable and open to life's experiences. That's one of the greatest gifts that our protection magic gives us. So I hope that this is at least a helpful starter to the conversation. There's a million more areas we could go from here, and I'm already really inspired. So if you have any extra questions, if there was any area you would love to hear me go more in depth in into protection, or it was any of the other areas that I mentioned, please let me know. You can go to the show notes or go to thatwitchnextdoor.com/conjurethatwitch. I always love getting episode suggestions and putting out the content that you want to hear, neighbor. So thank you. Thank you for your time today and every day. I am always so grateful for it. If you need me, I'm just right next door, my friend. I hope that until our next time of seeing each other, you stay safe, you get to have some fun, and of course, stay magical out there. Did you get something valuable out of today's show? Here's how you can help continue to grow our magic. First, you can head over to Apple or Spotify and leave a 5-star rating and review. You can also share a shout out on your social media page and make sure you tag me at thatwitch.nextdoor. And of course, you can just tell a friend that you think would enjoy the show and send them a link to the episode. Thank you so much, neighbor, for your support. I'll see you next time.